People say, oh, that's a retired general, so he'll talk more, he wants more money, he wants to impress. That is not the point. If 80 armed incursions a month, if 12 poacher groups armed into our country is not war, then I'm missing the point. I'm not being dramatic about it. It's a serious business. It's a national issue. The second issue is why. Why are we doing this? It makes no economic sense. There's no economic justification for the tens and hundreds of millions rands we'll have to spend. And yet there are people that realize that we'll spend tens and hundreds of millions of rands because in South Africa we sit on critical environmental assets. What we've done up to now is just the beginning. We do it only because we're a civilized country, because we respect our heritage and because what we do here is who we are as South Africa. Supply meets demand in Africa and in South Africa and in Kruger. That's the only reason why we do it. In a country where we have poverty, socio-economic problems, how do you ask more money for a rhino, for an animal? The third why is unfortunately win. We had a media group the week in the park. I did 10 interviews in 2 hours on Tuesday. Everybody asked me, are you winning? Because you're the general. The answer is simple, not yet. We all know that, you know, some of us have shares, so you watch the stock exchange. The most watched scoreboard in our country is the Rhino scoreboard, internationally as well. It's a cruel thing to watch. Not yet. When will you win then? We will only win if we treat Rhino and Rhino horn like gold because it's worth more. Then we will win. And I think we'll get there. We must only make sure that it's not many thousands of carcasses from now. I'm not being dramatic about it. The fourth W, or fifth, I've forgotten the count here. What went wrong? How could this happen? And whose fault is it? That's a lekker W. As South Africans, we like die koppe moet rol. Who must be fired now? What went wrong? Why is it like this? Whose fault is this? Ladies and gentlemen, it's our fault. Who are we? We are the leadership of the country, we are citizens, we're business. It's our fault. Could somebody have foreseen it? I don't know, I don't think so. But things are wrong. Then, what now? We've got to face the facts, and the cruel fact about this is the cost of ownership. If you're a country that are endowed with natural assets the way we are, and then critical natural assets like rhino and elephant, there's a cost of ownership attached to that. It's not only our cost. The rest of the countries in this world, the rich countries, where is their wildlife? It's extinct long ago. And with that, I'm just saying, if we face the facts and the cost of ownership, what with? With money. There's goodwill, there are prayers, there are groups that pray for us rangers. We feel it, we know it. What with? The resources that we must mobilize everywhere, and a lot of funds are mobilized for this cause. A short thing just on where we're going. Without lecturing you, this is not the time. We're building the best anti-poaching force in Africa. And again, you'll say now, I mean, look at the numbers. We stand tonight on 551. We're fighting a rearguard battle to keep it below 600. And that I can tell you, to come and have a look on what we do. And then the South African total is a lot more. I'm talking Kruger. When I talk Kruger, it's because Sam Parks is a custodian. And the Kruger is iconic, it's ours. It has this 350 kilometers of international border where our sovereignty is challenged. So we've got to win that one. All the other, the Marakedes, all the private rhino owners, we've got to win all of them. The rhino war has become a cause, a real cause that I think we must all take note of. This anti-poaching force has not brought the numbers down. And believe me, there's one person that wake up with that every morning. It's me and the team. That lot sitting there. I hope they will get their best behavior. I see they're even wearing ties. I cannot believe this. What have we achieved? We have brought down the year-on-year escalation by 20%. Year-on-year, past 3 years, it was 70% every year. That terrible graph. You know, for every briefing you go to, they show you that graph and a rhino with a chopped off nose. We've brought that down to 50%. It'll be less, but 50%. We neutralized just about 120 poachers in the park. Our allies in Mozambique has done 35. Our allies in the Greater Kruger on the West has done 75. The thing about this is we must do that, we must increase risk in the park, but it will not solve our problem. Everybody in our country wants to work on the poachers. Ladies and gentlemen, they're unlimited. If you take up 500, I'm honest, and then other people want to focus on the users, there are millions and they're growing by the day and they have money to pay. It lies in between here in the supply chain, and I'm not lecturing you. And that is what we've got to do. This anti-poaching force is doing this side because we've got to do it. This is happening on our beat. I cannot stand here and just tell you stories. You'll ask me, listen, what is happening? We're in trouble, and I'm responsible for it with my team. Apart from converting the ranger corps into an anti-poaching force, we've got to protect the Kruger. This thing that is worth more than gold grazes there with a normal fence around it. I sometimes just cannot understand. There are places in the Kruger where you can sit on the stoop of a shack and see the rhino. I'm not exaggerating. Now, which part don't we understand about that? So in terms of protecting the Kruger, can you put walls and Berlin walls and fences? Probably yes, but there are many ways to protect the Kruger, and we're looking at a meaningful way. Fences is part of it, there are a lot of other ways. We have developed in the Kruger a superior reaction force. You've got to be able, when you have an incident, to react. It costs money. You have helicopters with night sight, you have special rangers, you have dogs. Our focus currently is to become more proactive because you need intelligence. What we're doing right now is we're trying to clear the park from the inside. When we must do that, that must continue unabatedly. You do not clear a park from the inside, you clear it from the outside. Whether you start in Southeast Asia, whether you start in Mozambique in our region, or in the Greater Kruger or the Lowveld in our instance, that one can talk about how they want us to go about that. You clear the park from the outside, you need intelligence to do that, and you need to take out syndicates. There is this demand for this commodity. There is a rhino economy that runs in this world that buys people and governments. It's a fact. And we've got to make sure that that is addressed. Again, it takes no responsibility away from people like those people sitting out there, the other people in other parts. Our approach, therefore, is the buffer zone, and I can assure you, without going into detail, that we've gone to great lengths to partner and have good alliances with everybody around us, including our communities. The long-term success of a park in the emerging world lies in community ownership. We're only 50 years behind the time, and we think if we give communities a few Mopani women, a few Impala, that's wonderful. It'll have to go a lot further, but that will take too long. That's too many carcasses from now. So we must continue with that, but in the meantime, there is work to be done. The issues at stake, I mentioned intelligence. It's the wrong word. You say intelligence, you're in big trouble. Information, knowledge, risk management, whatever it is. We've got to be more intelligent. We've jacked up this ranger corps to an anti-poaching force. You've got to send them to the right place. You cannot just send more rangers around. If you wait till they're in the park, it's like looking for a mosquito in the sun. You can find it. Of course you can find it. But unfortunately, many times, you find it where it stings you. And that is not the way we should operate. This is too important to do it that way. The second issue is Mozambique. It's way above my pay grade to stand on this podium and talk international relations and foreign relations. All I'm asking Mozambique is, hundreds of horn pass through your country every year. Mozambique, how many ports of entry do you have? Is it impossible? Can you do nothing? I know about the communities, the poverty, all of that, and we must work on that. How is it possible that you as a neighbor, as a SADC member, how can you allow hundreds of kilograms of horn willy-nilly to pass through your country? The Kruger problem cannot be solved unless we solve Mozambique. I know there's no wonderful one. Our minister is gone there. I hear they call this person Fundi. Mr. Mkateni, as all of them are working on this. There are other members here from the department. All of them. All I'm just saying is, in a simple way, after a glass of wine and some good lamb, Mozambique, your story does not add up. And I think we all have a responsibility. I have seen a difference in the Mozambique, and I'm a newcomer to this. I'm around a year. I've seen a difference in the post-CITES Mozambique. Since CITES, Bangkok, and whatever happened subsequently, I've seen a difference. In the police force, in the Tesano Foundation, in the concessions, and in the Limpopo National Park. So all I'm assuring you of tonight is that is work in progress and it's going well. The third issue is cost of ownership. I say again, how does our minister go to cabinet or to her fellow ministers and say, put more on this? I don't know. All I'm knowing is that the biggest risk we run big risks. There's a risk to our rangers. They can get killed, they can get convicted. There's a risk to tourism. There's a risk to integrity, to sovereignty. But a big risk is too little, too late. Where will this sum of money come from to sustain this war in the coming years? Hopefully, maybe decade. I'm drawing this to a close. We say what we do and what we are convinced that the right building blocks are put into place, that we've got to extend it beyond the park. We've got to have this all of government approach, where every government department, and then every party in South Africa and in the international community takes part, whether that is a CITES or a SADC or a UN or a, I don't know, whatever, must participate in this. We will need technology. We know now, after a year of close cooperation with the CSR, we know what technologies we need. And we don't want to get silly. We're not a rich country, but the park is 20,000 square kilometers, 2 million hectares. We have one ranger per 70 square kilometers. You can put more rangers in, but later on you'll have more uniforms than billable t-shirts. And we want billable t-shirts there, because people come to rejuvenate, to enjoy the park. You don't want camouflage Land Rovers all over the show. You can put 10,000 people in there. Then we ruin the park. We need intensive protective zones, and we've identified those. There are areas where there are just too many rhinos. You just cannot ignore that. You've got to take measures. Some of it is fencing, some of it is technology. There are people tonight here that are working on the asset management. This asset is worth so much, so what do we do with it? How do you make sure that you sustain it? Do you do something to the asset to make it less attractive? Do you sell the asset, make it available? There's the social media. I firmly believe that if we get social media ambassadors, and I'm talking people with a following of 500,000 and more, the only people that has that sort of following are pretty people and sports persons. Get them! I think there is a that will discredit the killers and that will promote the plight of the rhino. And then lastly, there's an option that we're closely looking at that will be discussed next week, and it's why don't we take legal action? Why don't we act? There is international law. Why don't we act against people that plunder our resources? While we CITES, while we have the meetings, while we have memorandums of understanding, while we have international relations, but that must all take place. It's really the bigger picture. We're not there. Why don't we take legal action? Why don't we go into countries and freeze assets and bank accounts? Ladies and gentlemen, it's like taking your bank card. If you look in your purse now, your bank card is gone, you're out of here. Whiskey or no whiskey, why don't you're out of here, because that is terribly uncomfortable. Why don't we freeze the bank accounts? Why don't we do something about it? We can do it. and it will make a difference. We need a breather from the outside because we need to match what the Rangers do. That thin line, those people, we need to match what they do. And that is my appeal to this organization, with great thanks yet again for this and what will come after this in years to come. And people that are prepared to put money and effort. And it's a wonderful way to serve our community. We all serve our communities in many ways. But in this instance, I think in South Africa, it has become so important that on behalf of the Ranger Corps and on behalf of the Rhino, I thank you very much.
Major General Jooste, thank you very much for that